cry. Quite possibly all within the same episode. Let's talk about it with TV veteran Dan Merchant on Steve Brown, etc.
He's an old white guy, an author, broadcaster, and seminary professor who's sick of religion. And he's brought friends. Please welcome, etc.
And welcome to Steve Brown, etc. Steve is obviously away this week. My name is Matthew Porter. I am Steve's stunt double and also your humble guest host for today. Thanks for hanging out with us. We got a great show for you. Our producer, Jinx, is working hard in this little glass booth. And like I said, I know we're going to have a good show today because Jinx has got a fire in his belly. And by fire, I mean burrito. So
it was tacos, but you're pretty close.
Tacos?
If I disappear, just go with it.
Our video director and one-man IT department, John Myers, is in his tech bunker. John, you guys don't even know, is so capable. In fact, probably the only thing he can't fix is our economy, unfortunately. Dr. George Bingham is the president of Key Life with his mind on the money and the money on his mind. And Kathy is away this week, but Jeremy Birdsall is here. And if you listen to our daily Bible teaching program, Key Life, you've probably heard Jeremy's name before. And we're so excited to have him hanging out with us today. We're going to be talking to him a little bit later. But now, I want to talk to you guys about our guest, Mr. Dan Merchant. He is a veteran television writer and director and executive producer. You wrap those things all up in television, we just kind of call it a showrunner. Best known for sci-fi zombie horror comedy hit Z Nation and VH1's Rock and Roll Twilight Zone anthology series called Strange Frequency. Previously, Dan wrote, produced, and directed the indie film documentary Lord Save Us from Your Followers. And currently, you can find two different series from Dan on PureFlix. One is called Live and Local, and the other is called Going Home. Dan, welcome.
Hey, good morning. Great to be with you guys. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us, and congrats on the projects. You got two at the same time. You're like the Shonda Rhimes or the Dick Wolf of PureFlix right now.
No, you're right. You're right. Thank you. No, it's a great time. It's a great time, and very fortunate. We partnered with Sony Affirm, Rich Peluso at Sony Affirm, greenlit Going Home, which is a show about confronting death. So saying yes to that during a pandemic, kudos to him. And then Live and Local just debuted last Thursday on PureFlix is a love letter to local morning radio. So I feel very at home with you guys.
Yeah, outstanding. I want to get into all of those at Live and Local first, but would love to take a step back first. Curious to know, what was your entry point into the world of writing and directing and producing and show running?
The very first entry point was spending the spring before 7th grade summer camp writing comedy skits for Talent Night. I felt like we needed to have better material than just whatever we could make up during.
You guys are phoning it in.
Exactly. The parents deserve more. So I just, as a kid who was trying to figure out how to express himself, but just finding an outlet, that was the first one that I can remember. And no one else was showing up with typed scripts. So I think that was the beginning. But I've been in the industry a long time. I started in local television in Seattle, a comedy show called Almost Live that made mostly local humor. That was the first show that I sold skits to. And there's some interesting alumni from that show. There's Bill Nye the Science Guy, you may have heard of. Yes. There's a guy named Joel McHale who was on Talk Soup and Community, and an Oscar-nominated screenwriter named Bob Nelson, who wrote a film called Nebraska that Alexander Payne made a few years ago. And Bob's gone on to direct feature films as well. So coming out of Seattle with this little local show that encouraged us that you could not live in LA and still find a way into entertainment was a big boost, right away. And then the hard slog begins. How do you do this? How do you get paid for this? I have a great idea, but who do I tell? So that's the hard part that then takes a bunch of years to get figured out. And
that's great.
And then you wake up and you're here.
It's so funny because making any kind of footprint in this industry is tough, but to do it outside of the TMZ, 30 mile, is a level of difficulty above even that. So that's really amazing, to have done that from where you are in Washington. That's amazing.
Yeah. And I lived, I grew up in the Seattle area. I've lived in the Portland area for most of the time since then. And then you mentioned Z Nation in the introduction, which is for Sci-Fi Channel. And we did a 5-season run there. And that was how Hollywood kind of works, which is it's who you know, meaning a buddy of mine calls up and says, "Hey, got this thing." And I'm like, "Zombies, huh?" And he's like, but he's like, "Well, I'm the showrunner." And I'm like, "Oh, I'll come and be on your show. Great. This is fun." So, it's a friend again, back to the summer camp thing. It felt like a friend invited me to bunk with him at summer camp. And then you go and you have this adventure and you just keep going.
That's great. Well, I would love to hear about the adventure called Live and Local. What is that? What's this TV series about? What can we expect?
Well, Live and Local is a mockumentary, you might call it. So it's in the tradition of The Office or Spinal Tap would have been the first one for me. The Chris Guest show. So it's set at KHUG FM 109, always Live and Local. And one of the real fun things about this show, so it's a workplace comedy, basically. Mm-hmm. Half of the show essentially is on the air, much like we're doing here. And the other half would be behind the scenes. So when we go to a commercial break or you put on a song, then little situations ensue. Our main character is a guy named Tommy Murphy. He's played by Dave Coulier from Fuller House. And many other projects through the years, but most people know him from being on network television through the 90s. His co-host is Tina Knott, and she's played by Emily Pendergrast, who you might recognize from HBO's comedy Veep. She plays Jonah's sister wife in the later seasons of the show, and she's a member of the Groundlings comedy troupe, the main cast of the Groundlings in Los Angeles that people have heard of. So exceptionally talented woman, and with Dave's stand-up comedy experience and Emily's improv experience, for them to be playing, morning hosts on a radio show, it was really playing to a unique skill set that they have, as well as being very excellent actors. There's a looseness required, to pretend that you're live on the radio. And they're wonderful at it. The other stars on the show are, and part of the catalyst of season 1 of Live and Local is a new program director enters the building. And anybody that's worked in radio knows everyone's blood runs cold when the new PD walks in. You're like, oh no, are we changing formats? Are they changing hosts? What's happening? And he's played by Pat Cashman, who is a Seattle legend and an Almost Live alum. So Pat's somebody I've known and started working with, it would have been in the late 80s, early 90s or something. So forever ago. And so a wonderful, it's a wonderful flashback to have Pat join the show. And then the last of our kind of 4 main characters is producer Lucy, played by Kendra Ann Sherrill. And producer Lucy has moved into the intern chair when the show opens, from the intern chair into the producer chair. Because, in radio, if you're a warm body, you get promoted into the next spot when somebody's left for the next market. So that's where we kind of start the show. And one of the really fun elements of the show was trying to create an actual radio station. And, we had Dave Coulier run the board. We had real mics. We got our Vox Pro loaded with all the promos and spots. And that's where Jeremy Birdsall comes in, as he created the imaging for the station. So the K-Hug jingles and when Pat Cashman's character Jerry, the new PD, comes in and changes everything and starts adding jingles like K-Hug, totally inoffensive to everyone, always. It's very funny when you sing that, and that's what Jeremy and his crew put together. And so to really make a radio station, we had to make fake commercials of like, well, who would be advertising on this little in the middle of nowhere station? And well, we decided Myrna's Fabrics ought to be one of them. And then you got to decide who that is. So the jingles and the commercials kind of become part of the fabric that surround Tommy and Tina in the morning and try and make this thing like a real show.
That's great. And it does read as a real show. And so much of it, translate to comedy and drama is that you have real believable characters who you can invest in. They're distinct, and you've got some good stakes, and you can feel the tension. And this has both of those. There's a really great dynamic of, like Dan said, where the program director comes in, and then you've got a sidekick that's kind of, ready to take her own, spot in the spotlight. Great tension. Dave Coulier plays it beautifully. Dan also talked about some of the creative work that Jeremy did. On the other side of the break, we're going to play a couple of those just to give you a taste of what the show's about. Super funny, guys. You got to hang out. We're talking to Dan Merchant, the writer, director, and executive producer of 2 shows on PureFlix. Check him out, and we'll be right back. Thanks for joining us on Steve Brown, etc. We are hanging out with writer, director, producer Dan Merchant. Dan currently has 2 TV series that can be seen on the PureFlix platform. There's a comedy series, Live and Local, and the drama series, Going Home. We'll be talking about Going Home in just a little bit, but still want to kick around a little bit more of the backstory of Live and Local and what that's all about. As Dan said, it has it's the workplace sitcom, but also there's sections that just unfold like in real time of like an actual show. And we didn't really get into this. It's not the guests on the radio show are not actors.
Yeah,
tell us about that twist, because that's cool. I've never seen that before.
Yeah, it's a fake show that we're trying to sell as a real show. You might notice we never tell you where we are. There's references in the weather. We're a 20-minute drive from Centerville is what we give away in the show.
Great. Springville.
There's 38 Centervilles in America. And for some reason, Illinois has 6 of them, which is fascinating. So anyway, the idea is that this could be your local radio station, just 20 minutes outside of town or whatever. So fake show, but real guests, as you point out. So we have in the first couple episodes, you would have seen a comedian named Leanne Morgan, who is outrageously funny. Episode 2 has the front man for legendary rock band Skillet. I've always loved, my kids loved Skillet when they first came out. And they're on the stages of Europe right now with the biggest, Metallica and the biggest heavy metal bands in the world. So I love that a group of faith folks can rock out and go toe to toe with anybody. And that's fantastic. So John's on. The next episode features a singer named Colton Dixon, who was on American Idol and I think he's an Atlantic recording artist now. Delightful guy, great singer. And so we sort of imbue the show with a little more reality, for as much as it's looking like a documentary. Well, now people, are on the show and are being interviewed as guests. And we did, I stole that from Gary Shandling from 30 years ago. He had a show.
You're going to steal from somebody.
That's it. The Larry Sanders Show. I always thought that was funny that it's a fake Tonight Show with a fake Johnny Carson.
Yeah, that's true.
But there's David Duchovny from the X-Files talking about the X-Files. So wait, he's playing him? What? So I always thought that was funny and had that in my back pocket. And it really does add a different dimension to the show, and it sucks you into the show in a different way. And also, as you talked about, we're on the air, we're doing the thing, and then we go behind the scenes. We don't usually get to go behind the scenes. This part we've seen before, whether you watch Howard Stern or ESPN or something, you've seen them on the air, but you don't get to see them bickering or fussing with each other, or you really hurt my feelings when you did that. I'm sorry, I didn't, whatever the fun stuff that we get to do with them. That part is new, and it's a different venue, and it's an interesting. We're in the streaming age, as you guys and I are doing this morning. So I thought it was sort of an interesting time to go, well, let's go inside the medium that transformed the last century. It's not this one anymore, guys.
Yeah, I love it. And again, like that attention to detail to kind of make it really feel real and authentic. And part of that was the audio work of Mr. Jeremy Birdsall. And I don't know if they're called liners or IDs, but you know what they are. And John has one queued up, I think. John, would you play one of those for us?
Uplifting positivity, that is positively uplifting.
I have not yet played that and not laughed out loud because
I can tell Jeremy wrote that.
It's only a slight exaggeration of the actual Christian radio stations, which you said it's a love letter. And I think that says so much, where yes, we're poking fun, but it's not in a mean-spirited way, right?
Oh, not at all. Not at all. I mean, that you just heard our toughest satire from the whole series is right there.
You're so edgy.
Yeah, we're so edgy. Yeah, no, like you described before, quite beautifully, actually, that it's a show about people, and you've got the character that Dave Coulier plays, who's frankly, he's phoning it in. He's been on number one in this market for 30 years. Which kind of like the old Mel Brooks joke is like being world famous in Poland. It's like, I'm number one in the Tri-County area.
Yes.
Congrats.
Yes.
And he's been too scared to try a larger market again. And he just settled into his thing. And he's got his young protege, who's now played by Emily Pendergrass. Tina's 9 years as his, the second mic on that show.
Yeah.
She's not an intern anymore. She's got stuff to offer. She's good. And so she's kind of pushing on him a little bit. And again, with social media, a huge part of what you do in radio. And he doesn't want to know what Facebook is. He doesn't want to know what Twitter is. And, she's streaming live on Instagram behind the scenes during the breaks. And so it's a little bit of a culture clash thing.
Yeah.
A little bit of, when he started in radio, the world was different, for genders in the workplace. It's like we're in a different world, and we got to wake up to that a little bit. So we gently explore some of that stuff, as well as acknowledging radio dying around them as they speak live on the air.
To borrow from David Spade, he's a Polaroid guy in an Instagram world.
Yeah, that's good. That's right. Yeah.
So I think we have one more time. I think John has one more liner if you play this, because it is so good.
Totally inoffensive. Totally
Jeremy, we just got like a minute. Could you use a little color in the back? What was the directive, and how did you hit this thing out of the park on that?
So Dan and I spoke about the plan and what he wanted for this. And Dan wrote the content of what would become the lyrics for the imaging jingles. So that was like, this is what we're going to do. And essentially, it sort of starts out serious, but then as we go, it gets more and more ridiculously hilarious. And the directive he gave me was, we want to do this like what a typical CCM format station would be right now, which is to say they think they're cool, but they're really not as cool as they think they are. They're behind the times by several years, and they're doing their thing the best they know how, but they're a little bit clueless in some areas. And we talked a lot, got a lot of sense of the direction. And man, when I started just kind of putting melodies to the words, it just kind of flowed out of me. It just got more and more funny as we went, and hired some great friends of mine to come sing. And the end result is I'm singing, my friend Paul Kupek is singing, and my friend Nadia Borno is singing. So if you want to listen real close, pan it real hard to the right and you can hear me.
Right. Dynamite.
It was a lot of fun, and the one you just played was actually my only kind of creative input into the lyrics, because like I said, Dan wrote the whole thing totally inoffensive, and then Nadia was singing, and she just literally did that. She's like, totally inoffensive, totally. And I'm like, that's hilarious. And I don't know if
little touch of Valley Girl there. I love it. It makes it complete. Hey, listen, when we come back on the other side, we're going to talk about Dan's other project, completely different vibe, but also very moving. You guys stick around. We'll be right back. Thanks for joining us on Steve Brown, etc. We are hanging out with Dan Merchant, the creative mind behind 2 TV series that can currently be seen on PureFlix, Live and Local, and Going Home. To check those out, make sure you stop by pureflix.com.
Well, Dan, this is my part.
That's right.
Because
hit me, Jinx. Hit me.
When I got the surprise invitation to PureFlix and didn't know what it was, and being the IT guy, trying to figure out who hacked me, I got clicking on there. I forgot all about the Live and Local show. When Going Home was the first thing that popped up once I got logged in. I'm like, oh, this is for the show that we're doing. Okay, I got you. Well, let me brush up. So I'll be, I don't normally get the book on Steve Brown, etc. ahead of time, so I'm sometimes a little late to the game. So I'm gonna be ready for this one. I'm ready. All 6 in a row, one sitting. Boom. Sat down, binge watched the whole thing.
Oh, you watched 6 Going Homes in a row?
All of them.
Are your tear ducts just empty?
Did you watch This Is Us?
I didn't get my work done.
A little uplift.
How are you feeling? Are you
awesome.
Okay?
So yeah, that's one of the things that I'm the wrong person to watch that show. And especially hearing in the first segment how Live and Local pokes fun at the over Christianness of things, if that's a word. This one is like I don't normally watch Christian movies that are very Jesus forward, or like there's a devotion, or she has her, I guess, private time devotional at sunset every day, which is a clever touch on the name of the house and the whole phase of life. But it's also so real. Like the girl that comes in, the new charge, perfect. You couldn't have done that any better. Just the way that's mixed together, and it's like, hey, this is obviously a faith-forward show, but everything else in it is 100% reality. And when Charlie's got to face at the end, she's got to face her own friend, and you couldn't have put it together any better. I really don't think you could have.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Jenks. Appreciate that. Yeah, if I can translate, I guess it's kind of Christian, but not crap. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
It's the perfect blend of all of it. It's really, really well done. Really well done. And like, I don't know how you wouldn't call them the special. I guess they're special guests. The people that die on each show.
One time appearance.
You're going into this show knowing that somebody's going to die every time.
No, you're right. So
give us the premise.
How do you pull those people, and their acting skills are amazing as well. I had so many how did they do this? How did they do that? How did they do this?
Well, so let me give you the 30,000 foot view. So Going Home is the story of a hospice nurse named Charlie Copeland. And compared to Live and Local, that's a half-hour kind of alternative comedy. This is a heavy scripted drama. And Cynthia Geary, who you might remember from Northern Exposure on CBS, a big hit back in the 90s, plays Charlie Copeland. And Cozy Zulsdorf, who you referred to as the new charge, that's Janie. And she's just joining this industry. And to your point about, you know, when people come on and they die, it's like that's hospice. It's a nursing show. It looks like a doctor nursing show, medical show, but the audience already knows it's not about saving the patient. It's about something else. And what we learned, you know, what you learned watching the show, what we learned in researching the show is that the care that hospice provides is essentially for the physical well-being, the mental, emotional well-being, and the spiritual well-being of a person about to transition and their families. Mm-hmm. Well, some episodes, as you see, you know, Charlie comes in. She's kind of like a detective in a real subtle way, because she's got to come in and figure out who needs what from her. Is it the person in the bed who's going to pass? Is it the distraught loved one? Is it who needs what? And sometimes it's facilitating a very important conversation that has been put off for 20 years. Right. Sometimes it's just to sit and hold somebody's hand and give them comfort. And also as Jinx revealed, we have lots of guest stars. Tom Skerritt comes on. He's in the second episode. Football star Vernon Davis comes on and plays a football player who's killed his liver with painkillers. So the first patient that you see, client, actually, they call him in hospice, the first client is a handsome former all-pro young man of 35 who couldn't possibly be here to pass away, but he is. And William Allen Young, who was the dad on Moesha back in the day, plays his father and is a tremendous, these tremendous actors who got to come in and, do death scenes and, very emotional things. The thing I'll say too, as I say death for the fourth time in a minute, is that the show, and you back me up, Jinx, it's not a sad show.
No,
it's a beautiful show. It's an uplifting show. So speak to the death point, Jinx.
It puts death into place. I mean, I love that Charlie keeps saying that death is not the end of life. It's a part of life. And y'all got to go watch it. I don't know what else to tell you. It's like, I literally sat down and I just watched all 6 right in a row. The actor set, the storyline, and the way that you keep, faith is a huge piece of death. And the way that you work that is really, really well done.
It is tremendous. It is moving. If you've ever had any experience in a hospice facility, you will go, yes, that is what it is like. And it is a beautiful and important ministry that people do. And it's not a downer. It's powerful. It's moving. You're going to like it a lot. On the other side of the break, we're going to talk a little bit more about the show, about how it came together. And we are talking with Dan Merchant, the creative person behind Live and Local and Going Home. And we are going to be right back. Thanks for hanging out with us on Steve Brown, etc. By the way, do you get our weekly email? It's called Key Life Connection, and it's just a little small thing we do to remind you that God is not mad at his children. While you're thinking about it, go to keylife.org/subscribe and give it a try.
Dan, we started talking about it a little bit in the break, but it seems like just the way you describe the shows, and I haven't had the opportunity to binge watch them. I'm looking forward to that. But it seems like both of these shows are really well suited to having sort of guest cameo type appearances from all kinds of people, and especially maybe with the Going Home one, even aging actors that might not have had as much opportunity recently, something like that. Was that part of the design in your?
Yeah, George, great question. Very insightful. You're totally right. Tom Skerritt, who guest stars in the second episode with Seattle actor Sharva Maynard, Tom's 89. Wow. So, he's not going to be number one on a call sheet, very much longer, or he hasn't been that kind of heavy of a role in a while, although he did do a great movie called East of the Mountains, which is out on VOD now. In the fourth episode of Going Home, there's an actor named Conchetta Tomei, who was I don't know, she was one of the leads on China Beach on ABC.
Wow.
Back
I watched that show as a kid.
late 80s or 90s or something. So yes, very capable actors, tremendously experienced talent, who, there's just not a lot of parts for a 75-year-old actor right this minute. Yeah. Well, on our show, there might be. And that allowed us, Jinx was kind enough to talk about how good the acting is on the show. We knew that was our stock and trade. Really, you're talking about conversations about life is really what the show boils down to. And you better have some pretty darn engaging actors if you're just going to sit and talk. And you better have an important conversation to have, and you better have it with actors who are killer at what they do. And that's the secret weapon of Going Home. The other secret weapon, as you guys already alluded to also, is that I didn't even realize it as I was working on it, but it's the most relatable show I've ever worked on because, of course, the end of life will come for us all on this planet. And we've had our own brushes with it, with family members and friends. And depending on how old you are, we know what death is. And it's sad when our loved ones leave. And it's also, you got to keep breathing and keep walking. And we also get a little bit of perspective in that moment. And that's what I hope Going Home can share. And certainly there's some storylines in the show that demonstrate or illustrate ways to have hard conversations that we've put off, but that somebody might want to have right at the end. But gosh, if I'd have had this conversation with my whoever estranged sister 20 years ago, I'd have had 20 more years of relationship with her before she left this earth. But those are hard things for us to do.
Yeah, just a little bit of a follow-up, and I'm sort of the least knowledgeable in this the genre, but I mean in terms of the film and acting and directing and so forth. But with aging actors, and you've got people that are beginning to really identify with that particular stage in life. Do you find that, I mean, do you have them sort of contributing to the script in terms of when you're putting together the scenes? Or is it pretty much all scripted for them?
Well, what an actor does to contribute to the script is to make it seem like that character is really doing it. We gave them all the words. The writers on the show, Matt Michelatos, my wife, Kara Merchant, we were this tiny, concise writer's room, and we really kind of beat the scripts up, and we researched with the Hospice of Spokane and kind of got true stories and wove those into the stories. But what the actors do and what Cynthia Geary does, I kept saying to Cynthia Geary, who's unbelievable on this show, who stepped away from acting for a while, just doing local theater while she was raising her kids in Seattle. And for her to come roaring back in as the lead of a show and to just command the presence on the show is unbelievable to me. But she was generous because she would always go, "It's on the page. It's all on the page." And I'm like, yeah, it is. But you're what you're doing and what you're doing in these scenes with Cozy Zulsdorf, who plays Janie, you're making it real. You're bringing it to life. You're sucking an audience in. And it's why people watch shows instead of read books, because there's this dimension that tremendous actors bring to the table that just suck you in. And again, this is the difference. Story and lecture, two different things. I can lecture somebody about, well, there is such a thing as a good death if you do this, or life is part of, death is part of the life journey. Yeah, boring lecture. Great show. It's a beautiful, touching, thoughtful, show that goes places where people don't think they want to go. I saw a thing on the PureFlix Facebook page where somebody goes, yeah, you cry, but they're good tears. That's it. There you go. That feels like a job well done. If I can say so myself. Going off of Jinxie, binging it. That's unbelievable.
Nice. I think Jinx had one more question.
Yeah, leave it to the music man. I did not get this from the show, but my notes say something about you. You know the Who? Who do you know?
My VH1 my VH1 show, Strange Frequency. Roger Daltrey from the Who was the Rod Serling host character on that. So
what was that like? What was
what was he like?
How was it? How was it working with?
He's great. He's a super serious professional who has the perspective of, if I didn't do this, if I didn't become a world famous rock star on stage at Woodstock when the sun rises, I'd have been a stonemason. And so he's got a certain hardworking, humility to him. I found him to be very interesting, very, very nice guy. And, this is 2001. So, it's right before John Entwistle dies. Keith Moon has already died. So they had some miles on them by, the 2000s, of course. But no, it was great. I mean, I slept in the line and, out in the parking lot to see the Clash open for the Who at the Kingdom in 1982 in Seattle. So to meet and work with Roger Daltrey was a little surreal and a lot of fun for me.
That's awesome. Real quick, last couple seconds. We're going to see season 2s of these TV series, or what else are you working on? You get a little tease of anything?
Well, I certainly hope so. We were fortunate that Going Home got a very strong response from the PureFlix audience. And, we've been number one there basically since we debuted. So they're responding beautifully. Live and Local is just out now. Yeah. So go check it out. PureFlix, the app, pureflix.com if you want to watch on your computer. I understand on smart TVs like Roku and things like that, it's an app, or it's a channel that's available there. So the audience gets to decide if PureFlix says yes to more episodes of Live and Local and Going Home. And I hope the answer is yes. We got a lot more stories to tell.
Well, it should.
Love it. We hope so too. It is definitely worth the renewal. You guys check it out. Live and Local, Going Home, both on PureFlix. We have been fortunate to hang out with the writer, director, producer, showrunner, creator, probably catered the whole thing and was the second AC, who knows. Dan Merchant, thank you so much, Dan, for joining us, and we will be right back. Thanks for spending an hour with us here on Steve Brown, etc. In case you didn't know, every summer we create a special digital-only version of Key Life magazine, and it just so happens we just launched our newest version, and may I say, I think it's our best yet. Even cooler, Mr. John just created a special archive where you can access all of our previous digital issues as well, going all the way back to 2018. Do you remember who you were in 2018? I think we all knew who a woman was back in 2000. That long ago, guys. So check that all out for free. Go to keylife.org/magazines to check that out. What a great hour with Dan Merchant. I am constantly amazed by the creativity of folks like Dan and Jeremy and everybody on this show. I'm also amazed at how God shows up in stories, and not just stories with a Christian worldview like Live and Local and Going Home, secular stories too, right? How many times have you seen a secular story where the hero ends up sacrificing himself or herself to save everyone? Oh, that sounds kind of familiar. Or the character who knows they've messed up or failed and are somehow desperate for redemption. Well, where does that desperation for redemption come from? Even in these secular stories, there's these faint outlines that are pointing us towards God, pointing us towards the gospel, towards our need for grace and redemption. There's a great Psalm 139. It says, "Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in the depths, you're there. And I would argue we also find him in our stories. Now, am I saying you should go watch whatever like terrible sex and violence filled show you want and you'll find something redeeming there? No, I'm not saying that. So don't email Steve to that effect. But to borrow from Scottish writer Bruce Marshall, the young man who rings the bell at the brothel is unconsciously looking for God. So if you're seeking out the stories, you might not find God there. But what you are ultimately seeking is God. And this is the point where I would say, hey, Kathy, who's our guest next week? And she would tell us, but you know what? She's not here today. And the executive producer, whoever he is, did not have the foresight to pull up the document to find out who that guest would be. Now, I'm not sure who the executive producer is, but I'm going to look into this. I'm going to investigate it, and heads are going to roll. I'm kidding. It's actually the president of Belhaven University. His name is Roger Pirrett. He has a really interesting new book called Opportunity Leadership. It's about how you're not supposed to make plans, but still succeed. And I'm like, that sounds great. Yeah, I'm like, this could open up a lot of possibilities for me, for real. So, guys, thank you so much for hanging out. We had a blast. Hope you did too. Hope you'll join us next week. As always, remember, be safe, stay dangerous.